Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Judaism is, at its heart, a very egalitarian faith. This is sometimes obscured because in different communities and in different historical eras, sometimes people have felt that this was not always so. But when you look at the giving of Torah, it was not given just to Moses, but it was proclaimed for all of us. It was not given to be observed only by the priest, although they may have had some specific jobs, but all of us were meant to involve ourselves in the keeping of the mitzvot. This was unusual in antiquity, and it remains unusual. I will remind everybody that although I may be a professional rabbi, there is no such thing as a professional Jew. That Judaism is not a profession, it is something that we live, all of us, whether you are part of the clergy class or not. But with all of that as a preamble, when we are here in Parashat Bamidbar, we notice that there is, well, a hierarchy. There is definitely a division of labor. At the very least, we have to admit this, because not only do we have the Kohanim and the Levi'im with particular jobs regarding the Mishkan, the tabernacle that we all helped build, but even amongst the Kohanim and Levi'im, there are specific jobs that different groups have. In fact, much of this week's Torah portion delineates which part of the sub-tribe of the tribe of Levi has the job for carrying the menorah, or has the job for carrying the poles, or has the job for carrying the tarps. I mean, honestly, does that need to be spelled out? Do we have to say whose job it is to pick up the box? Can't we just say, Levites, you guys are all responsible for this? Well, let me ask you in general, before we get down to the at least rabbinic understanding of why we have this division of labor. If we had a job that needed doing around the congregation, if I were to send out an email after Shabbat that said, come one, come all, we need some help in painting the room, what are the likely outcomes of such an appeal?
Very small.
So, outcome number one is no one shows up, or very few people show up, such as when we're building the sukkah. And you know from firsthand that it's not always as many people on deck as we might wish when moving around the poles of the sukkah. I see many of our sukkah movers in this room, which is wonderful, but maybe that is a select group. But the fact is that we do not get 100% of the people to show up. Now, there are good reasons why we don't get 100% of the people to show up. The most sympathetic is that, well, not 100% of the people are available to help. There are some people that are simply too old or are ill or are recovering from illnesses. They cannot do it. There are others that are involved in different mitzvot, whether it be taking care of their family, taking care of other community needs, that are not available for such a job. Some people are busy doing the chores for their own families that they couldn't do during the week because between working 2, 3, 4 jobs in their family, there simply isn't enough time to do things during the 5 work days. And so with Shabbat out, because it's Shabbat, Sunday can often become the only day for doing those things. But there is also a fundamental human quirk where when we think that all of us have been asked to do it, no one of us feels like I am obligated to do it. When it is a community responsibility, it becomes individually zero, because we are obligated, not I am obligated. If I were to say to somebody, hey, Frank, I need you to come help paint the room on Sunday, I can wager that I will get a much better response from Frank than if I just know that the email showed up in his inbox. By selecting a person, by approaching a person, you increase their feeling of personal obligation. So, if the Torah did not say that different Levites are responsible for different jobs, there is the possibility that nobody would do it. That Moses would say, all right guys, time to break camp and head on to the next stop, and everyone would just sit in their tent. And nothing would get taken down, nothing would get packed up, and nothing would get carried. So, and that is indeed one of the primary rabbinic explanations for why this had to be delineated, because otherwise it wouldn't get done. A job given to everyone gets done by no one. But there is a second rabbinic reason for why these had to be delineated, seemingly the exact opposite. If I were to tell everybody, hey, we've got a wonderful opportunity to go out and clean this magnificent, beautiful yacht, and everybody who does so will have a chance to be on the yacht for a month vacation. All you've got to do is, help me clean the decks a little bit. I can see some smiles over here. Do you think we'd have a hard time crewing the boat? Do you think people would show up for that job? Yeah, you'd probably have a stampede up the gangplank of a month vacation, and all I've got to do is, maybe mop occasionally? Sign me up. And the rabbis say that this was also a genuine concern. That for people that were passionate, that if we said, hey, who wants to carry the sacred menorah that all of us built together and upon which holds all of our hopes for peace and light of the world, you'd have a stampede as people rushed forward to volunteer for such an honor. Maybe not get quite as many people to volunteer for carrying the poles, but when it came time to carry the things that were most beautiful, most honored, well, how would we be able to stop the crush? The stampede would be a problem. Now, these seem like two opposite problems, but in fact, they are the same problem. They start off with the same fundamental question of, well, I'll pick what I want to do based upon what's in it for me. If what's in it for me is status and pride and glory and honor, then I will rush forward to be able to grab me some of that. That I will be there, not because it's the right thing to do, not because it is the good thing to do, not because it needs to be done and it's helpful to the community, but because everybody's going to look at me and say, wow, look at him, he got to carry the menorah. And that's not the reason to do it. And likewise, if I'm sitting in my tent, it's because I've decided there isn't any reason why I should be doing this. It's nothing in it for me. Let someone else schlep things. Let someone else hold this. I'm going to sleep in a little bit longer. I was a slave most of my life. I don't need to work on this now. Again, what's in it for me? By delineating who has the jobs, the Torah at least removes this issue when it comes time to move the Mishkan, to the tabernacle. But this is an issue that we continue to face day in, day out, in our personal lives, in our communal lives, in our national lives, in our role as humans, where very often we will decide what we will or won't do based upon just what is in it for me in the most basic of sense. When what we should be checking is, does the job need to be done? Is this important to my family? Is this important to my community? Is this important to my country? And if it is, why would I expect someone else to do it rather than me? And if somebody else is doing it well, and they're doing it perfectly, and there doesn't need additional assistance, the job is covered, then I'll find a different task within my family, my community, my country that is going underserved, and I will work in that capacity as well. When we see ourselves as working towards the same goal, not for ourselves, but for us, not for me, but for all of us, then there are no good jobs and bad jobs within that scenario. There is no hierarchy of status, there is no privileged position, there is just pulling together for the same purpose. It's hard sometimes to see that. It's hard sometimes to recognize that what we each are meant to do is to help lift each other up and to share whichever part of the burden we are best able to bear. The Torah has tried to give us an example, but that was easy. Figuring it out day to day, well, there's no way the Torah can tell that for each of us. That is something we have to navigate on our own. Shabbat Shalom.